Steve. Thanks so much for joining me. The CFPB's Section 1033 rule has been finalised, but it remains in limbo. So what are the next steps? And in your view, what challenges could delay its implementation?
Well, Ellie, look, uncertainty is the name of the game throughout North America when it comes to open banking and open finance. And certainly the change in administrations in Washington leads to questions about what the future of the CFPB's 1033 rule is. And over the next weeks and months, I think we'll get more information from the Trump administration on what their plans are for the rule. More broadly, though, what is clear is open banking is here to stay in the United States, and the market is going to deliver it either with or without the final 1033 rule as it was proposed or as it was published last year. And so the question really for all of us to figure out is, how are we going to do this? There are hundreds of millions of consumer accounts that are today connected to third-party tools. There are thousands of third-party tools throughout North America that are improving consumers and small businesses' financial well-being. And so one of the things that we are really excited about at the summit is a convening of all of these different stakeholders to start talking about not only what does the future of 1033 look like in the US, but what does the future of the market look like? How can we all come together and deliver these benefits in a lasting way for consumers and small businesses?
Absolutely. And I'm sure one of the questions that's going to come up at the summit and which I'll ask you now, what are the implications of this regulatory uncertainty for not only fintechs, but of course banks and consumers in the US as well?
Well, there's a challenge and an opportunity with any situation like this, right? The challenge, of course, is the consumer permissioned data marketplace for financial services for many years was uneven. I may have had more or less rights or protections in sharing my data than perhaps my wife or my neighbor or my brother or my sister, depending on where we had our bank account or what third-party fintech we were using. At its core, the CFPB's 1033 rule and open banking regulations more broadly across the world seek to provide some uniformity and universality to the protections and the rights that you have as an end user, as a consumer or a small business owner, to share your data, to have that data protected when you share it, and to give you access to a competitive range of tools and services. So on the challenge side there is some risk that we could regress back to the market as it existed before the CFPB started its process of crafting a 1033 rule. But there's also significant opportunity. And I think we have to recognize that we are in a much different place as a market in the US than we were in, say, 2016 when the CFPB started this process. And so we have the Financial Data Exchange as one example that has brought together all sorts of stakeholders in the marketplace to deliver standards in the technology upon which these tools are being provided. We have significantly advanced consumer expectations of access to their data and the ability to share it. And so there are challenges, but there are also real opportunities to kind of come together in a more collaborative way as a market, given all the advancements that have taken place in the intervening years.
Well, I want to ask you a little bit more, so head further north and talk about Canada. We've seen, certainly since the start of the year, some political uncertainty there, of course. Now, Canada has a new prime minister. So how does Canada's progress on open banking compare to other global models? And what are some of the roadblocks they're facing to implementation?
Canada's journey towards open finance has been marked by fits and starts and then long pauses. And we are unfortunately in a bit of a long pause right now. The journey in Canada really started back in 2018 with the release of language in the budget in 2018 that kicked off a process through which elements of open banking have been delivered, but not all of it just yet. We are at a position now in Canada where the government, through the Budget Implementation Act last year, provided for the basic foundations of open banking, which could become open finance at some point in the future. The FCAC is going to be the entity responsible for delivery of open finance, but they have not yet gotten the authority in legislation to, for example, write the regulations that will create the accreditation rules of the road for third parties. There are still questions around how liability will be apportioned. the government's intention had been to pass legislation at the end of last year that would allow for the FCAC to provide regulations to do that. But Ellie, as you allude to, there's been some political changes in Canada which have delayed that. There is going to be an election this spring in Canada. And so a big question is, will we see a change in control of government? And if we do, what does that mean for the future of open banking? I think the one thing that we at FDATA are really heartened by is that both the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party in their party platforms in previous elections have pledged to deliver open banking and open finance. We've got a new prime minister, as you say, Ellie, who obviously has a background in financial services and financial regulation. We have a new minister of finance in Canada who was responsible at the innovation office for delivering the digital charter. And so a commitment to innovation and competition. And so while we are in a period of pause right now, my hope and expectation is on the other side of this pause, which we expect to end sometime in late April or early May with an election, we will get back into a period of activity and hopefully kind of finalize this path towards open finance in Canada.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about North America as a whole then. What industry challenges remain in scaling open finance adoption across North America? And how can the FDATA Summit help address some of those?
We're at a very interesting, unique period in interaction amongst the North American countries. It's been marked of late by tariffs and threats of a trade war. There's a bit more hostility than I think we are used to, particularly between Canada and the US right now. And so one of the questions that we're hoping to really facilitate conversations around is, what does collaboration look like in this environment of emphasis on tariffs and kind of economic, potentially isolationism? The Canadian government had significantly nodded towards interoperability in its open finance framework with the US. Is that still the case, given recent events? To some degree, there had been a healthy kind of friendly competition between the two countries and who could deliver open finance first. And it seemed like every few months, one country would kind of leapfrog the other. The political uncertainty in both countries, I think, brings some question into what the future state looks like. Whether, for example, the US will now be more market-led than regulatory-driven, and how comprehensive Canada's path forward and the timeline for Canada's path forward. So I guess, Ellie, in a nutshell, what we're looking forward to at the summit at this really pivotal time, which will happen, we think, just after an election in Canada, is where do we go from here? What are folks' candid thoughts about how we can deliver open finance in a world where the government may not be as engaged as it has been in both countries for the last several years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And well, look, how do you see North America's open finance landscape evolving over the next 5 years then? And what steps do you think need to be taken to ensure its success?
I think, again, the emphasis is really going to be on the market, on stakeholders. And in the next 5 years, I expect we'll continue to see a lot of collaboration within the industry. Consumers expect this, right? So this is not going away. We are not going to be able to put the genie back in the bottle or unscramble the omelet or whatever metaphor you want to use. And because we all live in a world where all of us as consumers get to vote with our fingers every day, there is an imperative, if you're a financial institution or if you're a fintech, to not only allow your customer to access their data, but if you're a recipient of that data, if you're delivering a product or a service, to provide a cutting edge, innovative tool, product, or service that can deliver benefits to the consumer, that can improve their financial well-being, that can bring down fees for service, that can deliver things faster than folks are used to. And in this 21st century economy, the expectation is if you can, that consumer, that customer, that small business is going to go somewhere else. I think the other thing that I would offer is in this period of economic uncertainty, my expectation is financial providers, whether they're financial institutions or fintechs, are going to try to find ways to deliver more value to their customers. They have to. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world. Inflation is a very real concern, both in Canada and the US and globally. Open banking, open finance can't solve that issue directly. but it can help it. If you have less stress interacting with your financial provider, if you can, as a small business owner, access credit more quickly to make your payroll, or as a consumer, access more affordable credit or see your payment settle in your account more quickly, that is an immensely valuable thing for your peace of mind. And so, Ellie, my answer to your question is 5 years from now, I think we will have delivered open finance in Canada and the US. So it's not a question of whether, I think it's a question of how. What does the path from here to there look like? What is the role of government to get there? What is the role of the market to get there? How much collaboration will there be between Canada and the US? Or, as we've seen over the last few months, as Canada turns towards the Commonwealth on any number of issues, including trade, will Canada start looking more towards the UK or Australia and the models that they have launched to find some way of interoperable open finance with those countries? And so it's a challenging time, to be clear, but it's an exciting time. And I think 5 years hence, we'll look back on this as a really formative period in the development and promulgation of open finance in both the US and Canada.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point there on the interoperability piece. Well, finally, Steve, if you haven't given people enough of a reason already, why is the FDATA Global Open Finance Summit a must-attend event for policymakers, for financial institutions, and for fintechs in 2025?
Well, look, there's something unique about every single market in the world. Certainly for us in North America, the US and Canada both have their own very unique elements. In the US, we have a large, incredibly diverse marketplace with thousands and thousands and thousands of providers. In Canada, the conservatism with a lowercase c of the financial sector has for many years, you'll hear regulators argue, protected Canadians from some of the worst downturns that the world has seen in terms of financial crises and other bad economic situations. However, inherently, there is nothing unique about the questions that policymakers and market stakeholders are grappling with when it comes to open finance. These are questions that, for example, UK stakeholders have grappled with over the years. And so what we have seen with our open finance summits in the past is it is a really incredible opportunity to share notes and learnings from other markets. We'll have Hank van Hoel from Open Banking Limited talking about not only the path that the UK has taken to date, but also as I think about the transition from open banking to open finance, what are some of the complications? What are their thoughts? How are they kind of thinking about taking the next step? We'll have representatives from the Central Bank of Brazil talking about all the steps that they've taken towards open finance. And so from a market stakeholder perspective, it's an opportunity to kind of to paraphrase Wayne Gretzky, but not see where the puck is in North America, but where the puck is going, because you can kind of see what other markets have done. For policymakers, there are precious few opportunities to have candid conversations behind closed doors with your colleagues internationally who either are grappling with or have grappled with many of the same types of questions that face you. The balance between safety and soundness and an open data economy, liquidity and more easy money movement into and out of financial institutions, third-party risk management. And so what we have seen in the past is tremendous value in the ability to have those conversations face-to-face as opposed to on a screen or in a formal setting in ways that have facilitated the delivery of open finance more quickly and more efficiently internationally. So a challenging time, but really excited to have those conversations and see if those conversations can't help us deliver open finance more quickly.
Absolutely. And you're certainly not going to be short of things to talk about there. So best of luck with it, Steve. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.